Oh,
What?
me, oh my.
No way.
Full House. Another Full House. We did it, Omar.
Another reboot of Full House. This is incredible.
Put a Full House coming at you live. Hey, I'd like to introduce my co-host. He is, ladies and gentlemen, RFK's new running mate, Omar Najam. Here we go. So excited.
I want to dip my toe in. I want to dip my toe in.
I think this is the move. I think it's a good move.
And folks, I want to introduce the host of this week's podcast. It is none other than the one man who's taking literally all of the helicopters in India. It's Sandeep Parikh!
Oh, man. Ooh, baby. If you don't know that news story, you're gonna
hear all about it.
Real soon on this episode. This is our show, ABCD. It's the American-born chatty Desi's podcast.
Yes, it is.
As many of you know at this point, it's a live stream. It's a podcast within a live stream, so we're live right now. Within our two lives, as two American-born Desis, it's a pod duck-in. So this is for anyone out there who, like us, is navigating our cultural identities and just want to chat it out.
Yes, and yes. What are we chatting about today, Sandeep? Let me tell you.
Boy.
First, we're going to talk about some stuff that's got us confused, that's in the news. We're going to figure that stuff out. We did a little bit of research. We're gonna find some information. Yeah, we did our own research. And by us, I mean, of course, it was Kaylin. And then we're going to talk about what it's like to be a brown creative, or really to do anything that's straying slightly from the stereotypical path in our segment, Not a Doctor. Then we're going to catch up on Auntie versus Auntie Watch 2024. Folks, it's heating up, not to spoil anything. Then we will play our ABCD game, Mostly Real Election Stunts. And finally, we close it out with the Desi of the Week. But first, we have some sponsors to thank. Do you mind if I run through our first sponsor real quick, Sandeep?
I don't.
Okay,
I never will.
Our first sponsor happens to be DesiQuest. It's the Dungeons & Dragons 5e campaign that stars me and Sandeep, as well as Rekha Shankar, Anjali Bhamani, a collection of amazing guests, all set in an original South Asian mythology-inspired world from the brilliant mind of Jasmine That Bronze Globular, truly fantastic GM. All the episodes are out right now, which means you can watch them. And if you want to watch the whole thing without ads, you can become a citizen of the DesiQuest world by signing up at patreon.com/DesiQuest. You can watch the whole thing ad-free, as well as every episode of our after show podcast, streams with our character artist Voodoo Val, and so much more. Again, check that out at patreon.com/DesiQuest.
Do it. Well, hey, our next sponsor is... It's you guys. It's you guys out there. You guys are making this happen by going onto our Patreon and subscribing, and we so appreciate that. We just kickstarted the EffinMovie Club, and this is to aid in my research of movie making as I embark on my true mission to make a film. So that's happening, and I want to bring you behind the scenes on how all that movie magic comes together, all the highs and lows, because there's going to be plenty of those. And so to do that, to get involved, you go over to patreon.com/EffinFunny, EffinFunny. I think I got that right. And join the movie club and get an insider's look at my directing process throughout my journey.
Are you going to watch Umbrellas of Cherbourg at any point?
Oh my gosh, I gotta write that down. I don't even know what that is, but I'll do it. Yeah, I gotta get on top of that. We just watched Baghead, which is a really cool mumblecore film from the Duplass brothers. It was very inspirational to see something that was created for such little cash, go to Sundance, do amazing things. Times are different now, but it was still very inspirational to see what you can do with a few resources and a lot of chutzpah.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
So those are our sponsors. Again, that's patreon.com/EffinFunny. Help us keep the lights on over here at ABCD.
Folks, we appreciate it so much. And to show appreciation, should we get into the show?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right. Let's hop into What's Got Us Confused. All right. For our first story, India is having its election right now. Did you know about this?
Yeah, I did. Yep. Yeah, I've heard about it. It's huge. It's happening.
Story number 2, then. Just go ahead and hop over. Now, I got some fun facts I want to share with you about the Indian election and also talk about how the system works. Do you know how the Indian election goes? Do you know how it's all kind of like how they choose their leaders?
I'm sorry. I said I've heard about it. I don't know anything about it. But I have heard about it.
Well, did you know that India's election is actually the largest democratic election in the world?
I do know because my dad constantly brags about how India is the biggest democracy in the world. Just like randomly, we'll be like at a TGI Fridays and he'll just shout it out to the waiter for no reason. So that I know. Yep.
Can I get y'all some $2 margs? You know what? Actually, let me get you something. A little insight into democracy.
Exactly.
There are close to 1 billion voters that participate in the elections in India, and the way this works is that votes fill in the seats of the lower house, which is called the Lok Sabha. I should look up how to pronounce that properly, but also once I do, I'll still mispronounce it. I'm going to be fully honest. But it is the lower house. It's the more powerful house of India's parliament, and that's decided for the next 5 years. There are 543 seats up for grabs in each election. And your party or coalition needs 272 in order to win, because the winning party gets to decide who is in charge of the country.
Parliamentary process.
Election. Yes.
Yeah. So it's not like our whole electoral college situation. This is, you know, you're electing your local leaders to then elect the prime minister of the country.
You know what? Let me ask you really quick, because I did a little bit of research about this before I kind of tell you sort of like the main folks that are kind of in the running right now in terms of the parties, also like how long the election goes for and everything. Let me ask you a genuine question. Do you know how the Electoral College works?
I feel like I get taught every 4 years and remember then, and then I immediately forget how it works. But yeah, very, very vaguely. I just know that we don't choose our electorates, really. That they are essentially chosen by the parties.
Yeah, that's correct. And also the reason that you might be a little confused, too, about, like, you're just like, I have ambiguous thoughts about it, is because it's pretty ambiguous. I looked up who can be an elector, and it says you can't be a member of Congress. You cannot hold federal office. Okay, that makes sense. And then you can't have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the United States or given aid or comfort to its enemies.
That'll never come up. Like, that'll never... That seems arcane. It's kind of a puppet position, right? Because in the end, they're supposed to go with whoever wins the popular vote for that state, right?
Yeah.
So it's all or nothing.
Well, when you say supposed to, it's kind of like there are many states where that is legally the requirement. But there are also states where that's not legally their requirement. And for those folks, our election is kind of a suggestion to the electors as to what to go for.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So
okay, but that's not how it is in India.
But that's not how it is in India. In India, you are voting for, again, those seats in the lower house. The election runs for, you know how we have an election here? How long does it last? How many weeks does our election last, Sandeep? Like our voting process? How many weeks?
We have a day to vote.
Oh, a day. That's right.
We have 1 day. So we have one. So how many weeks? 1/7.
In India, the election runs from April 19th to June 1st. That's 6 weeks of voting. Also, there is
That's
a
wild
rule.
To me.
There is a rule that there must be a polling station within 2 kilometers of every registered voter. Do you want to know how many polling stations that is?
Oh man, this is like one of those like Google interview questions. How many pennies could fit in this room? And you're like, oh, yeah, I can figure that out. Hold on. I don't know. 2 million.
That's actually a pretty close guess, so that's pretty good. 2 million pennies could fit in this room. Welcome to Google. It's 1.05 million polling stations, which then takes up 5.5 million electronic voting machines, and this all requires 15 million staff and security overseeing the election.
That's almost the amount of people that actually vote in the U.S. election. 15 million.
So anyhow, that is kind of a rundown of this election that's going on, and the election currently is essentially between these two, parties. I don't think it's going to be super hard for you to remember these two parties. One is you keep it a secret when you join a job, and the other is the name of the country. So we've got the National Democratic Alliance, that's NDA. And
that's
then we've
the
got
BJP? I didn't know that. Okay.
Within the NDA. And then you've got the Indian National Developmental Inclusive Alliance, which if you take the first letter from each of those, it spells India. India was formed last
Wait,
year.
I love that. Wait, the first letter is Indian?
Yes. This was formed last year, actually, with more than 40 opposition parties joining forces. So this election is not only super important because this is the largest democratic election, but also really interesting in India's political history because we are looking at a party that is an amalgamation of a ton of opposition parties that are going to be working together. So we'll be keeping an eye on this election. But for now, I do have my last question to you, which is, are you feeling informed, confused, or baffled?
I'm definitely feeling more informed. I think, the thing that I'm impressed by, like the whole 6 week, like, yeah, if 1 billion people are going to vote, if you actually care about the voters and counting their votes, then you give it the time to. I mean, I don't know what the flip side of that is. Maybe the flip side is that it gives more time for corruption or something. I'm not sure. But it just seems to make sense to give people actual time to get to the polls and, instead of being like, it's Tuesday or bust.
How do you feel about India's electoral system versus ours?
I don't know. There's parts of it where it feels like it's probably a better system. I feel like this is a longer discussion to have.
USA or India, just put your vote now, and then your electoral college representative will actually do the decision in the after show for you. Don't worry about it.
Right. What about you?
I didn't know that much about Indian democracy until Kaylin did a ton of this research to sort of like inform us about how this all goes. I think it's fascinating. So I'm feeling way more informed about how the process goes, and I do have some follow-up questions which we can discuss in our post show.
And if you have follow-up questions, you can hit us in chat. You can hit us on all of our socials. We'll be glad to answer those, or look up, or have Kaylin research the answers to those. Now moving on to story number 2.
Okay, here we go.
This, I think, obvious segue. There's been a huge snake fossil found, and can you guess what mode of transportation that they are comparing this snake fossil to?
A snake fossil.
Yeah,
and it's big.
Snake fossil. Fossils found near a coal mine in India revealed an ancient snake that stretched to 50 feet long.
50 feet?
Yeah.
I'm going to say, if a canoe. Let's say a canoe or a kayak.
Okay. Yeah. It's a bus. It's longer than a school bus. Okay? And it could have weighed up to 2,200 pounds.
No.
Compared to this largest living snake today, which is Asia's reticulated python at 33 feet, which is also horrifically long.
Hold on, I'm sorry. Wait, what's that snake called?
It's called Asia's reticulated python.
Okay.
I don't know if Asia's in the title or if it's just like it's in Asia.
No, it belongs to the band Asia. I'm looking it up right now.
There you go. That's probably it. That makes sense. Anyway, so this one, which is 17 feet longer. This newly discovered behemoth lived 47 million years ago, so take a breath. It's not coming back anytime soon, we don't think, in western India's swampy evergreen forest. And it does have a name. It's named Vasuki Indicus, after the mythical snake king Vasuki, who wraps around the neck of the Hindu deity Shiva, which I didn't know. Like, that is amazing to me because we had a Shiva statue at our house and it has the snake coming out of the head and around his neck. I didn't know that snake had a name. That's so cool. So this snake is now named after that snake, and he was slow. Okay, since he was huge, he can only kill via constriction, so he had to choke you out, I guess. He didn't have like any sort of speed
he was
to snap at you.
Thousands of pounds or something. You said
2,200 pounds. And so, can you guess what animals were its common prey?
This sounds like Galactus as like a snake. I'm gonna say elephants.
Elephants isn't on the list, but that would make sense to me.
Okay, rhinos.
Rhino's not on the list.
Am I thinking too small? Like, is the answer the moon?
So it goes catfish, turtles, crocodiles. So you're not thinking too small. But then you are thinking too small because even primitive whales. This snake may have eaten whales. I don't know how they know that. Mostly lived in the wetlands. So I guess there were whales in the wetlands.
I mean, we have dolphins in the Ganges River, right? We've got the Susu dolphins. So this, right? Am I right in saying that those are the dolphins that are there? So maybe the whales followed. Also, the whales historically swam through the rivers in New York City in the documentary Avengers Endgame. So this makes sense.
Imagine being Pinocchio and Geppetto inside the whale.
And they get out.
Getting out of the whale, only to realize that you were inside of a snake.
Papa. Papa, where are we?
Okay, now, here's the scariest fact of all.
Oh, you haven't gotten to it yet. Oh, very good. Okay, please continue then.
Snakes, as we know, are cold-blooded.
Yeah.
We all took 8th grade biology. Meaning that they require higher temperatures to grow into larger sizes.
Yes.
So does that mean that global warming could bring back these monster-sized snakes? In theory, it is possible. So we all were worried about, like, melting ice caps or, tidal waves or earthquakes. No. It's snakes on this motherfucking planet.
On this jumbo jet. I can't
That's what it was this whole time.
believe that.
Yeah.
I'm hesitant to say I'm informed. I am baffled. And the reason I'm baffled is because why haven't I heard about this until just now?
Because you weren't listening to the ABCD podcast.
Oh, is this a show where this comes up on a weekly basis? You have a trend that's going. There's a herpetology trend, and I'm very concerned as to what next episode's going to bring.
So if you had to rate the story informed, baffled, or confused, you are more baffled by this?
100%. I'm sorry. A magic school bus snake just roamed around and ate whales? Yeah, Sandeep, I'm a little baffled by this existence of this snake that I can't quite comprehend.
And it's not snakes on a plane you have to worry about. It's planes and the snake.
Okay. Oh, my God. Are you ready for the last news story we're covering? Sandeep, you like helicopters?
Oh, my gosh. They're so fun.
Yeah?
My son is crazy about helicopters right now, so yes.
Oh, okay. Well, I got some bad news if you're going to India.
Oh.
Yeah, because India's Congress Party says it is struggling to find enough helicopters to ferry its leaders during the general election. According to helicopter experts, Modi's party, the BJP that you mentioned earlier, is hogging all of the country's helicopters. Chartered aircrafts are a critical part of Indian elections, and since national leaders need to attend multiple rallies per day in order to reach many of the 1.3 billion citizens and that nearly billion citizen voter base, they require helicopters to get around. But the BJP has reserved the largest share of domestic private helicopters to fly its leaders all over the nation. So now they've actually had to change the way that elected officials move about the country, and you have to let them know 24 hours in advance of where you're going and the details of the aircraft you'll be using. This has essentially become a giant rent-a-copter for the entire country of India.
Interesting. It's like almost game respects game. I'm a little bit impressed, I guess, with the level of I don't know if corruption's the right word or what, but it's certainly some level of some gamesmanship here. It's almost
opportunism.
Yeah, it's like, oh, the traveling basketball team is coming into your town, so let's like make sure that all the practice basketball courts happen to be filled up.
Yeah. Oh,
like
sorry.
Like,
we're doing all the repairs at that time. We're actually renovating all the basketball courts at the time. It would be like if you're playing
slick move.
The popular game Ticket to Ride with some friends, and they go to lay down some train tracks to gain points, and there's a note from the manufacturer that goes, sorry, the person sitting across from you bought all the trains. We have none for you to play with at this current time.
Exactly.
But good luck. We really hope you enjoy this. It's wild. It's helicopters. Yeah. Think about this now. How many helicopters are then in the air at any given moment that are being flown
in
by
LA? Like over us? Like 17. Yeah. Nonstop.
It is absolutely bonkers to go after all the helicopters so much that an entire political body has to say, okay, can we pause and talk about the helicopters? I think that's absolutely amazing. So with this, are you feeling informed, baffled, or confused?
I think informed. Yeah, I think this tracks. I'm not confused by anything here. It's the ruling party figuring out how to manipulate the situation, just like ever vigilant about ways that they can do to suppress the vote for the other side,
Mm-hmm. Do you feel that this is propelling us towards democracy?
Nice. Oh, was that nice? That was a good fun.
Genuine question, serious question about the Democratic election. Do you think that this is propelling us? Oh, that's good.
I hope it has a soft landing. I don't know the helicopter terms. Yeah.
But just wild. Imagine if you were like, I gotta go somewhere, and they're just like, sorry, we're all out of helicopters. What do you mean we? Oh, India.
Yeah. You gotta take the bus. Oh, I'm sorry, that's been swallowed by a snake. And now next up is our interview segment, where we search out far and wide to find any South Asian out there who has a cool job or career that, and you might want to sit down for this, is not a doctor.
Oh my goodness. This week we are interviewing television writer, comic book writer, and a very good friend of mine who actually not only got me into comic books, but took me to my first comic book convention. It is my very good friend, Sabir Pirzada. All right, welcome to the show, Sabir Pirzada.
Woo. Hello, thanks for having me.
You are a comic book writer, is that correct?
Yeah, it is correct, yes.
And also we grew up together,
yes.
All before all of this stuff. So, yeah, we want to ask you just a couple questions. First of all, how did you get into writing comics to begin with?
I got into writing comics just kind of from reading comics. It was just, an obsession of lifelong passion of reading and collecting, a superhero collection, at first Marvel, then DC, and then sort of following just writers and artists that I liked, and then eventually reaching the point where I had been experimenting with just prose fiction, writing short stories and things like that. And then from that, organically, I grew into wanting to bring my stories from prose over into having them illustrated. And so I started looking for amateur artists online who could then, bring the words into a panel format and then put together pitches for comic books to different publishers who accept that type of submissions. And then as luck would have it, I ended up getting one publishing deal with a publisher called Arcana Comics by the time I graduated from college. And so that was the beginning of comics writing for me, even though it probably took another 10 to 15 years from that point to actually write anything that anybody had actually read, because that was a multi-publisher. Took a long time for it to come out. It came out, nobody read it. It really wasn't until my work with Marvel Studios on the TV side happened that it started to open more doors for me in comics. So yes, I'm a comics writer and a TV writer, but the two things kind of went hand in hand in that one of them opened the door for the other.
I'm just like, how did your parents?
Are you suffering with like?
How did you break the news?
That's a good question. Yeah.
Like what? Yeah.
Well, I'm so glad you asked, because, and I'm glad that Omar is here, because Omar was a big source of inspiration to me as a writer, because Omar was the first writer that I knew. So a little bit about you, Omar, just to turn it back on you, is that you were this incredible playout.
Start at the bottom.
Writing your own original plays, and it was so eye-opening. And that was you're the first person I met who was like, yeah, I'm just writing for fun, and I realized like, oh, you can do that. And then realizing later that people can make a career out of that. Like, that was such an important part of my journey as a writer, is to see all that you had accomplished and were accomplishing in your life. So that was sort of the gateway to that. In terms of how I broke the news to my parents, it was gradual. It was sort of like, the hobby became the passion, became the obsession, the thing that I was going to do on the side while I was going to become a psychiatrist. And then, slowly that turned into, I'll just become a psychologist, not a psychiatrist. And that was more just based on my interest in mental health and where that journey was taking me. And then it was, okay, I majored in psychology, but now I don't want to pursue graduate school in psychology. I want to just go become a writer and move to Los Angeles. And the only reason that was as smooth a process as it was is because I had one uncle who lived in Los Angeles, who worked at Disney at the time.
Right.
So he wasn't on the creative side, he was on the marketing side. But the idea that you could have a job in the entertainment industry was something that was known to us because of this one uncle. And so that made the process a little bit smoother.
Did he actually hook you up? Like, did you get any?
He hooked me up with a couple of informational meetings with, writers and producers. And, my first time on the Disney lot was through a drive-on that he had set when he was there. So yes, no, I do owe him a tremendous amount. But it was one of those things where it's like, when you get there, you take these meetings, you're there to absorb information and, take all the advice you can get. But fundamentally, nobody can help you if you haven't written any scripts, if you haven't, put the time in, potentially as to get the skills you need to be an assistant and work your way up the ladder for those who choose to follow that path. And so that was the beginning of a long road for me. And so it was almost like those meetings that my uncle had set for me were kind of premature in that sense, and that I couldn't really take full advantage of them because I was meeting people who couldn't really help me because I had nothing to share with them yet. So.
Interesting. Yeah.
That's a great point. This is a great point because I get I'm at that stage now where I'm probably the uncle, and I have those meetings, right? And I'm just like, yeah, no, I think this may be too early of a meeting. It's good to meet you, but let's just meet each other like as humans, and then build up some skills, and then meet each other again when you have something to show. That's a good way to.
Or as I would say, I'll see you in another life, brother. And some of them would get it, but most of them would not.
I want to ask about your journey in TV as well, but not to make it such a journey-specific thing. So I'm going to start with this question. What for you was the first time, what was the first moment that you felt like you could hit up your parents and be like, see, this is real? And I know your parents, your family is my family, so this is like, I don't mean it in terms of like you'd have to prove it, but like, you know how like there's like always a moment where you get to be like, there's a billboard or at this, or like, I told you, I promised you. I said that this would deliver on some level. You can put this in the WhatsApp group. I think that's the moment. What was the WhatsApp group moment where you felt like your parents could take the screenshot and send that?
I mean, it was probably the first time I saw my name credited on a television show, which was Person of Interest, And so what a lot of broadcast shows have is something called discretionary credits, which means that you can work on an entire season of a TV show, but your name is actually only going to show up once on one episode, because you're sharing that space with all the other people who are working on this show who are in that same sort of category. So I didn't know, they don't give you a heads up when it happens. You're just watching TV, and then all of a sudden you see your name pop up at the end, when they're showing a preview for the next episode or whatever it is. And it just so happened to be whatever it was. I can't remember now, probably like 13 or 12 episodes into the season. I was like, whoa, that was my name. There we go. And then I told my parents to kind of keep an eye out for it on their DVR. And so, yeah, that was where it kind of felt real for me to be able to share with them, to say, see, it's a real thing now because it was on TV.
That's so great. I've actually bumped into people at conventions at Big Bad Con 2 years ago, where I had folks make the connection, because it's a Bay Area convention and we grew up in the Bay Area, where they've been like, oh my God, do you know Sabir? And I'm like, yeah, I know Sabir. And then they'll talk about how your career has been an argument for them in, like South Asian communities, to have that conversation of like, no, I can pursue creativity.
That's amazing. I mean, look, the thing that people don't really like to talk about is the money part of it, right? Which is like the typical advice we're given is that there isn't much money in this career, so go do something that is a stable job that is going to, provide for you and your family for the rest of your life, which is sound advice, but that was the eye-opening thing for me, which is when I became a writer's assistant on a TV show and I saw these writers and they all drove nice cars, they all had nice homes. Like, this was very eye-opening for me to realize that, no, this is a career that pays well for those who can get those jobs. Getting the job is hard. Yeah. But when you have the job,
I was gonna say,
and holding on to the job is hard because shows get canceled all the time. So the stability isn't there. But the money is there if you can get those jobs. And that's an important thing that we need to tell people in our communities and in our culture, to open their eyes to the fact that, like, this is a legitimate career. You just have to kind of swallow the pill of, like, the ups and downs of the industry, which is easier said than done. But that's like a lot of things. That's not exclusive to entertainment, I would say.
Yeah.
Where do you think it's going then? Because I wonder about the stability of that middle class writer lifestyle that I see eroding kind of before our very eyes. I think that even 3 years ago, I would have felt more confident in giving the people that advice, and truly, I feel less so. So I'm just curious where your head's at with that.
Yeah, I mean, what I would say is thank God for unions, right? I mean, the WGA minimums that we have negotiated are things such that if you get one episode, it's something that you can kind of live on for a while, and it earns you enough, at least for a 1 hour drama's worth amount. If you're able to get that, like, that pays for your health care and your family's health care for a year, so it's one of those things where it's like you have to accept the risk of, like, there's going to be long periods where you're not going to have work, and you're going to need to prepare for that time and plan accordingly with your savings, But one of the things I love about the industry is that, like, everyone at every time is always still looking for the next big script or the next big pitch,
right? Whatever
that is. It's like that idea that they think is going to make them a lot of money. And so some of that is identifying the trends whenever they are. I would encourage people to never lose hope, no matter how hard it gets.
Do some homework.
This is an industry, and the industry is changing rapidly, but it's not going away. People are always going to be making television. They're always going to be making films. They're always going to be making comics. So somebody has that job. There's no reason it can't be you.
Wow, that's really good.
Man, you're inspiring me. in the industry. Was there ever a time where you were kind of ready to give up? Was there ever a time where you had to pull yourself back up by your bootstraps, so to speak? Take us into that moment, because I feel like we never hear those.
Sure. There have been a few. I mean, probably the roughest time for me was when I felt like I was on track to get promoted, right, to staff writer on a hit show at the time. It was Person of Interest, right, the CBS show that at some point was doing 22, 23 episodes a season. It was on prime time, right? Like, and then, you know, all of a sudden we hit this magic episode 100, you know, category where all of a sudden if a show is owned by a different studio than the network it airs on, it actually becomes very expensive to continue to produce it. And all of a sudden we got a shortened order. The show was very likely not to continue, you know.
At the time, you were not a staff writer. You were
I was a writer's assistant who had written, I'd written one episode in season 4, and then I was given another episode in season 5. So I was actually supposed to get promoted to staff writer season 5, but because of the smaller budget, there just wasn't room in the budget to promote me or the other writer's assistant. So we were lucky that we still got another freelance episode that we could write and kind of walk away with that. But it was a scary time because it was the same time that my agent at ICM had dropped me at the time, the same week that I had just gotten engaged to be married. And so now I had to explain to my fiance that, like, oh, I think I just got definitive confirmation that our show is not coming back, and my agent just dropped me. You know, like all of a sudden my fortunes had
How good was your relationship at that moment?
she was a really good sport about sticking with me through that tough time, and I actually owe her a lot. I mean, she literally was marrying an unemployed writer. That's what happened. Is, you know, that show ended. I did not have a job, you know, and I had to learn the hard lesson that a lot of people have to learn when they do get dropped by an agent or their show gets canceled. Is that you have to worry about the career, not the job. If you put all your hopes and dreams into the one job, your hopes and dreams are going to get crushed. Every TV job ends at some point, or very few, like, you know, continue on forever. You know, you could count those on one hand. So expect that it's going to end. And at some point, at some point, someone may lose faith in you, and that's okay. Like, you have to have every faith in yourself. Like, this is an industry where, you know, everyone's going to say no to you at some point. It's kind of only about the 3 yeses you need out of compared to the 97 no's. So, you know, got to buckle down, work hard, reinvent yourself, and put all that ambition that you had to begin with, like, back into a new script. You're a better writer usually now than you've ever been before. And so, you know, sometimes it's a game of patience, but constantly making sure that you're doing things in the meantime that are going to open up new avenues for you. So
that is so incredible. And with those avenues, you've worked on some stuff that's kind of, especially for the topics of this show, like changed the world. You've written on many iterations of Miss Marvel. And I believe episode 2 was, I think, like the first time I think I've seen, and I'm biased because we got to work on that show together, but that we got to see like Eid on television, like on American mass media. And it was like proper, like, just all the people hanging out, and there's all the politics of like what happens at like all the parties and stuff like that, the Illumina aunties and everything.
Different subgroups that you find at the local mosque.
Yes.
That was like one of the most fun sequences that we got to break in the writer's room. Yeah.
Featuring a friend of the podcast, Anjali Bhamani. So how has that been for you, you know, going from someone who started, you know, going to comic book conventions? We saw very little representation for us, and we were X-Men kids growing up. So in all fairness, the general idea of diversity, the general idea of opportunity was out there through comics. But now to definitively get to guide a prominent Muslim voice in comics and television, how does that feel?
I mean, look, it's been a humbling experience from the beginning. I've been a fan of this character of Kamala Khan from the time that she debuted. I went to the store that Wednesday morning. I bought 3 copies of the very first print. You know, I was all about this character, and really I think it was the second issue where I realized that, to me, she was the new Peter Parker in my life. That she had this sort of relatability to her, and that I had lived all these conversations she was having with her parents and with her brother. I felt like I had those with my sisters and with my parents, you know. And so I felt very grateful that this character existed and was in my life and was something I could just, you know, go to the comic store and read the next adventures of her every month for years, you know, until this show came around. And then all of a sudden I felt this tremendous sense of responsibility of sort of, you know, safeguarding this character as we were bringing the adaptation to life from comics to the screen. And so by the time we started, you know, we didn't know who Iman Vellani was. We hadn't casted it yet. So it was a lot of, you know, conversations about just in our minds, okay, how do we translate the tone of this and the feel of this and the characters that we love so much to fit within the MCU and make it fit within, you know, the 6 episodes that we were told was going to be the show. And, you know, the reassuring part of it was that I wasn't alone, right? Like, I was one writer who had this Pakistani American Muslim background, but I wasn't the only one. Fatima Asghar was there, you know, Aisha Puri was there, Bishake Ali was the head writer.
Wait a second, there was more than one? Hold on. You're telling me there's a... Oh, gosh.
This was the second time in my career that I got to be in a writer's room with other South Asian writers with my background. The first time was on Roswell, New Mexico, which was also a treasured experience I have writing television. So the fact that that's happened to me multiple times in my career is not something I imagined earlier on, but it does happen every so often, and it's tremendously helpful, because then you can argue with each other and say, well, my experience was like this, well mine was like this.
I love that, because I always have the nerves when I'm the only one in the room where it's like, wait, like, I'm not sure if we all did that. Like, I don't know if this is just specific to my thing, you know what I mean? And then all of a sudden this is representational for everybody, and then you get a bunch of flack for, like, what is this guy talking about?
Or even the flip side of that. Like, right? Exactly. In, not to ruin anything, but like, I'm pretty sure Nan was like, we got to do a Taco Bell episode at some point. Indian families love Taco Bell. And I was like, that wasn't just us. That was a cultural activity I was doing at the time. I didn't realize, like, my parents love Taco Bell.
That's actually the one thing we all do have in common is Taco Bell, right?
That is amazing. We want to bother you about writing all the time and have you essentially do a TED Talk for us, Sabir, but we do have a game for you that we're going to toss you into. Because it's one thing to represent the South Asian experience. It's another thing to represent the American experience. But when you have to do both, there's a little bit of navigating we do. And so we're going to force you to choose. We're going to force you into the most black and white thinking possible with a little game called This Versus That. And then after that, we're going to ask where folks can find all your stuff, and also what you're working on right now, and where people can purchase some books that you've got out there in the world. But before then, Sandeep, you want to run Sabir through a little This Versus That?
All right. So I'm going to give you a This Versus That, and then I'm going to tell you that we've done this on the show before and had the audience also vote, so we're going to compare your answers to what the audience said. Okay?
So there are wrong answers here.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. All right. No, but truly, what's your opinion here? Chai versus coffee. Start off with an easy one.
I go chai every time.
Okay, that is obviously the correct answer. Well done. Well done. Ding, ding, ding. Ready? Okay, let's go American wedding versus Desi weddings.
I mean, look, the line does blur sometimes, but I go with Desi every time. Desi weddings are a lot of fun. They're a lot of work, but you know, I think there's no other way to party.
It's strange showing up to a wedding where you haven't had to like put out the tables or the giant fans or set up the tent. Like, it's just a strange experience for me. Like, just going and I'm just like, this is a trap.
When you have nothing to do, I go to my American friends' weddings and I'm like, give me a job. Like,
right.
I will sweep. Like, what do you need? I will do. I need to do something.
Let me bust this table. We have someone doing that. Well, he's doing a bad job.
I guess the most popular version I'm seeing now, though, is the like taking the American, or like the length of an American ceremony and putting it in the trappings of a Desi celebration.
Yeah.
Is like the new thing. All right, we got two more for you. Let's go. This could be an interesting one. Bollywood/Tollywood versus Hollywood.
Oh, I think I have to go Hollywood because it's my industry.
So it's what's feeding you right now.
He felt the heat rise in the room.
All right, here's the final one. This will be interesting. I don't know if you're a practicing Muslim.
I am indeed.
You are? Okay. So this will be an interesting thing. Polytheism versus monotheism. In some ways, the Avengers is kind of polytheism, okay? I'm just saying. So if you're going to remove polytheism, you're basically taking the Avengers out of the equation. You're saying Superman over the Avengers.
I feel like any answer I give, I'm like starting a war or something.
I know, it's a tough time.
I can't believe we had people vote on this.
Yeah,
like, I can't believe we legitimately had people vote.
I feel like I'm being struck down, by the one or by the many.
It's scary. It's because what if you're wrong? Yeah. Okay. I'll let you slide with the pleading the fifth. Polytheism was the answer that was chosen. I'm going to give you a fifth one though. It's more of a down the middle. Ketchup versus chutney. Maybe actually just as polarizing in some ways.
This is the hardest one yet. This is harder than the previous question.
My mom is mad at Sandeep for his answer, and keep in mind, my mom doesn't remember what you said.
This is like the Alien versus Predator of cultural wars. I think I gotta go with chutney on this one. I know that's a tough one.
Chutney was also the audience's answer. Ketchup was my answer. Yeah, crazily enough.
I
can't believe it. Mr. Audience. Absolutely incredible. Well, thank you for speaking for the people, Sabir. I know that we said that the goal of a writer's room is to spread the experience, but I think you're kind of doing it with one solo voice. Well, since you've now won over the answer.
As the audience turns on me now.
C's get degrees. Yeah, since before the audience turns on you, while the audience is still basking in the fact that they finally see themselves represented in media through you and your opinions, can you tell the wonderful folks at home where they can find you and maybe what you've got on the shelves right now or what to check out?
Well, online you can just find me on my Instagram handle, which is just my name, Sabir Pirzada. In terms of what I've got coming out right now, I currently am co-writing Ms. Marvel Mutant Menace with Immortality, so Ms. Marvel herself, who's a fantastic writer. It's been such a privilege to co-write that with her. Issue 3 comes out on May 15th, I think, which is next week. And then I have an original graphic novel with Image Comics called Dandelion, which comes out on Wednesday, June 19th. And a couple of other things with Marvel Comics that I can't talk about yet, but they'll be announced soon.
On the way out, as we say goodbye to you, to new writers out there, is there a saying, a mantra, something that you wake up in the morning and...
Sure, it's kind of dark. I mean, basically, what I tell myself is stupider individuals than myself have gone further than I have. So why not me? And that's kind of the inspiration.
I love it.
It's huge. Earlier in the episode, we were talking about what's going to be our merch, and I wonder if we can possibly commission that from you.
No commission necessary.
All right.
It's all yours.
Thank you so much for joining us, Sabir. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
Lovely interview. And we are back now just in time for Auntie versus Auntie Watch 2024. Ooh. That's right. It's our segment where we track the 2024 U.S. presidential election to see just how close we are to achieving a presidential race between Democratic Auntie Kamala Harris and Republican Auntie Nikki Haley. Reminder that they are both at least part Indian, hence that they're aunties, and that, the Don is facing a million indictments and Joe is, old. So, unlikely at this point, but still totally possible. Okay, at least we say so to the tune of 11%. That's where we were at last time.
11%. And if you're just like 11% of what, we'll get to that at the end maybe. But, we started this segment kind of out of pure curiosity and with an intention to stay aware of politics and South Asian representation here in the United States of America. Okay?
And to manifest this reality where aunties go head-to-head.
We started this watch, right? Okay? I want to give you an update about Nikki Haley, because here's the thing. TheNation.com says Nikki Haley has a zombie campaign running right now and is picking up traction. Sounds a little bit, to me, like the rest of the world is catching up to Auntie versus Auntie Watch 2024.
They're listening to this segment. Oh my gosh,
I think we are
amazing.
owed. I think we are owed. So they steal from us. I'm going to steal from them. Here's some facts from the article. Since she stopped campaigning, Haley has piled up close to 1 million votes, bringing her primary season total to over 4.1 million. That's more than 20% of all the ballots cast in the GOP primaries and caucuses this year. Even though she's been called a zombie candidate, Haley continues to run up strikingly high vote totals and percentages in states that Trump has to win if he is to be the Republican nominee in November. So, what do you think of this? I mean, I got some numbers to throw your way. I got some battleground states to throw your way. But the press itself is calling this a zombie campaign, Sandeep.
This is great. I'm pumped. I wonder if it's just aunties getting out the vote themselves.
Yes.
They're in the temple kitchens and they're just going like, let's go. Let's get out there. We got to show up. That would be amazing. What are the
right.
numbers you got?
Okay. In Pennsylvania, Haley won almost 158,000 votes. That's 16.5% of the total in a state that Trump lost by over 80,000 in 2020 and won by about 44,000 in 2016. And it's also gone very similarly in Wisconsin and Michigan, which are both, as you know from following elections, those are battleground states. Those are important states right there.
The Rust Belt. Yeah, it's crazy. That's wild. So, I mean, I guess the idea is that, hey, these are Republican votes that may not go to Trump.
It's not necessarily saying that, like, well, Haley's picking up some steam. It's that Haley's had steam this whole time. We're just hearing the toot-toot of that train of Auntie versus Auntie Watch 2024, with which we were owed full credit. So that's the update on Nikki Haley. How is it sounding on the other side of things?
Okay, let me tell you about Harris and why I think we should add some percentages here. Mamala. Mamala. The term Mamala.
You mean Kamala?
Yeah. No, Mamala. The term Mamala is making the news. So last week, Harris guested on Drew Barrymore's talk show. During her interview, Harris shared that her husband's kids call her Mamala. And then after the show aired, right, what does Mamala mean? In quotes, spiked, that search term, spiked on Google 4,400%. And Mamala alone spiked 2,450% in the U.S. So this is huge. What does Mamala mean was Googled most by an overwhelmingly large margin by folks in Arkansas. That's traditionally a red state. And they're all wondering, what is Mamala about? Okay, people are thinking about her. There's some energy flowing her way. You know, I'm just saying, this is really indirectly boosts her numbers for Auntie versus Auntie Watch.
What are we, two questions. Where do we stand then on Auntie versus Auntie Watch 2024? What percentage are we at? And
we're at 11%.
What
11% chance of it happening.
Okay, good. Are we feeling like it's going up? The chance of this is going up? Are we increasing in the possibility of Auntie versus Auntie Watch 2024, or are we going down?
I want to give
I'm voting yes.
I'm going +2.
So okay.
From my side.
For your side, I'm giving another +2 for my side.
Okay. We're at 15%. We're at 15%. You heard it here first, okay? Listen, all you zombie voters out there, let's rock that vote.
All right. Well, that wraps us up for Auntie versus Auntie Watch 2024.
Now it's time to play mostly real election stunts. It's our ABCD game. I bet you can't guess what this one's about, you guys. It's right in the title.
Each question contains 2 truths and 1 lie about things real-life politicians and political candidates have done in the past to try to get elected. Sandeep and I will need to correctly identify which of them is completely made up out of the 3 choices. Each time Sandeep and or I guess correctly, we will earn 1 point.
Yes, and the winner, per usual, will be the host of the next episode as I am, so that you know. I mean, obviously, I'm reigning champ over here.
Okay, stop.
The loser is going to have a minute to announce their own never-before-used election tactic in their campaign to become everybody's favorite elected position, the district commissioner. You're going to need to know this because you're probably going to lose.
I think you're going to need to know this.
Wow.
Because this week, I'm taking
Fighting words.
Because I've already bribed a couple people, including the one who's going to be running this game. Take it away, Delvin.
Yeah, thank you, Omar. By the way, it was very sweet of you. I appreciated it. We're still enjoying it. Anyways, onto the game.
What did he bribe you with?
We can't get into it.
We can talk about it later. This is a tight podcast. We
can't sit on air. We can't sit on air.
We got to stick to time. Sorry. We'll get into it later.
Okay.
So, first up, which of the following election stunts is completely made up?
Okay.
A. Leftovers. A 17th century English politician publicly ate the leftovers off King Charles II's plate to demonstrate his loyalty to the crown. B. Immortality. A Russian candidate once promised voters immortality if elected, proposing to fund scientific research towards eternal life. Or C. Hologram. In Spain, a party leader used holograms of himself to appear at rallies simultaneously in multiple cities.
See, if someone's stealing his choppers, he's okay. He's using holograms. That's smart. That's good
thinking ahead.
Okay, so the immortality one, did you say like where that happened or anything like that?
It was
I
Russia.
said that the candidate was Russian. I didn't say where they were running,
Okay.
but it's probably implied by that perhaps they were running in Russia.
Okay.
Got it.
I think promising immortality is pretty standard. I'm going to actually go, believe it or not, with the leftovers.
And we're saying leftovers. Is
Yeah,
the fifth one.
eating leftovers, I don't think it's a very strong argument to say,
The
hey,
King's
I'm the best.
leftovers? Okay, I'm going to go with... That's actually what I wanted to go with, but for the sake of trying to score a point, I'm going to go with immortality. Because I
And
feel
the
like
actual
holograms
fake
is
one
legit.
Is
Mhm.
leftovers is indeed the fake one.
Oh, man. Should have stuck with my instincts.
Snoozers
Nicely
are
done, Nomar.
losers.
It was leftover.
Thank you for
oh,
keeping
my
it competitive,
gosh.
Sandeep.
So, damn it.
Which of the following campaign tactics has never happened?
Okay.
A.
Okay.
Musical trucks. In Japan, it's common to use campaign trucks blaring theme songs and political messages. B. Giant Monopoly. A candidate in Brazil transformed an entire beach into a giant game of Monopoly to criticize political corruption. Each
Ooh,
square
wow.
highlighted scandals or issues with jail, which is written in quotes. I hope you can hear my spoken quotes when I say jail, being a stop for corrupt politicians.
Yeah.
Or C. Kidnapping. A Philippine candidate arranged his own kidnapping, escaping, again, you can hear the quotes,
What?
right before Election Day to frame his opponents and make himself appear dangerous to the party in power.
That's amazing. Oh, my gosh. Only one of these is fake? Oh,
Only
my
one
God.
of these is fake. Two of these have happened.
I'm
Okay.
saying it's the music trucks. I need the other two to
I
be
know.
real.
That's how I feel, too. The music trucks is, like, feels so real. I think the music is... music trucks. Okay, I'm going to just, again, go against my own instincts and say that the Monopoly is... No, that's too specific. It's got to be the... Fine. It's. I'm going to say Monopoly. No.
Okay, we have musical trucks and Monopoly,
I
and
already
as
know
it
I'm wrong.
happens,
You're joking.
you are both wrong.
I
And
wanted it so
Kidnapping is
badly.
the one that we made up. Yes, musical trucks and giant Monopoly have both occurred.
My thought was that the Monopoly was so creative that I was like, oh, Kaylin probably came up with that one.
Is this game called Things That Haven't Happened Yet? Because that's a great
that's-
idea.
All right, going into round 3, the score is currently 1-0.
Ugh.
You have a tiebreaker on deck if you manage to tie this
This
up.
one
Sandeep.
takes it,
You
though,
are
right? This
still
one
in
takes
it.
it. This one takes
If
it.
you win it, you take it. But if it
Yeah, I
ties
got
up,
it.
we have a tiebreaker.
I got it.
Therefore,
Don't even worry
doesn't
about it. I
take
got this one. I got this one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which of the following things couldn't possibly be true?
I might not.
A. Gator fight. In his bid for governor of Tennessee, a candidate wrestled a live alligator to demonstrate his tenacity. B.
Okay.
Stool guy. Facing
Would
criticism
vote
for his
for that.
age, Norway's oldest prime minister candidate at 84 years old used results from a stool sample
No.
to assure voters of his good health.
No, absolutely not.
Or C. Chair
Oh my
debate.
God.
During a gubernatorial debate in Oregon, a candidate debated an empty chair after his opponent refused to participate. One of these is false.
I think
I'll let you go first again because I have to choose different than you anyway.
I think the chair one is fake. I think the chair one is based off of a Clint Eastwood story. I don't think he was a candidate. I think he just yelled at a chair.
I was during the RNC. He did do that. I'm gonna go with the. Oh God, I'm gonna go with the gator wrestling.
The actual fake story here is...
Come on, chair.
No, damn
It's
it!
the stool guy. Sorry, Sandeep. That was your chance to tie it up. Omar, with finding a single correct answer, is our victor. Congratulations, Omar. You will be the host on the next episode. Sandeep, you now need to deliver your never-before-used election tactic for your campaign to become district commissioner.
All right, the American people, you guys deserve a district commissioner that can commission the district. I mean, we all know what we do. We commission all sorts of things for the district. And so for that, I'd like to rock the vote. You've heard that slogan before.
Mm-hmm.
By bringing back stoning.
Hi.
So what I've done for you all is I've put rocks in all of in all your mailboxes with my campaign slogan on it, which is "Let's get stoned 2024." So I think that you guys know we need to bring back more corporal punishment into our society to keep people in check in order for this district to be commissioned properly. Please find your hand-painted stones in all your mailboxes. Me and my family, my daughter Charlisa, 6 years old, painted all these stones with me. I'm a family man, obviously. So I hope you enjoy. We bedazzled many of them. And yeah, go out there and go ahead and stone anybody that did you wrong.
Benjamin Lowe from The Guardian. Hi, do you mind if I ask a quick question?
Absolutely.
How big are these stones?
Oh, they're just kind of like gumball size. They're not they're not too dangerous. It's like a gentle pelting. We're not trying to kill people. Just to, put them in their place. So
okay, hey, how's it going? KB Dubs from New York Times. Quick question: why didn't you go with gumballs instead as like a gumball campaign?
It's a great question. Gumballs in this economy? Are you kidding me? Gumballs highly expensive, mostly made in China. Wouldn't touch the stuff. Is the minute up? Is the minute up?
Last question. Hi, this is Caitlin Honey from the LA Times. Does
this
welcome. Campaign have anything to do with the fact that your opposition, the two parties you're running against, are handing out scissors for Let's Cut the Rug?
That is absolutely right. And as we all know,
paper.
Thank you so much. As we all know, rocks beat scissors. So thank you very much. No further questions. Thank you so much. All right, we did it. Can you tell that I had no?
I had no plan. But while you were doing it, I was like, what would I have said? And mine was going to be, I'm going to go around the district and make 30 seconds of sustained, unblinking eye contact with every single registered voter.
It might be even more horrifying than the stone, to be honest.
Which, for the record, is the bribe that Omar provided to me.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's beautiful. Just someone paying attention to you, Delvin. Just someone looking you in the eyes.
15 a.m., 30 seconds, unblinking.
All right. Now that we're done with that, we're on to Desi of the Week. And our Desi of the Week this week is Meena Alexander.
That's right. If you're like, hey, this name sounds really familiar, I've heard this name recently, that's because Meena Alexander was the first person featured in the Google Doodle for this year's Asian American Heritage Month. She's a poet and a scholar known for her work on migration and identity.
I love that. Sorry, I just love that lead into you heard this name because you're just assuming that people always read the Google Doodles.
100%. When it's an interesting one, you always click on it. There's ones where it's just it's a bird, and you're like, okay. And then there's one where you're like, I'm sorry, who is that?
Well, good. I'm glad you clicked on it. And in case you didn't, here is what Meena Alexander is all about. Born in India, raised in Sudan, educated in England, a longtime resident of New York City, she was known for drawing on her experience of multiple migrations, conflicting identity, and the customs of 4 continents to produce 8 books of poetry, a memoir, and 2 novels.
Her honors included grants and fellowships from institutions including the Guggenheim Foundation, the Fulbright Foundation, the Rockefeller Foundation, and many more. She taught at schools that I think that you would know nothing about, Sandeep. Brown, Columbia, and several other colleges and universities.
Wait a second. I went to one of those. I don't know. What do you want to say? One of those rejected me, and the other one accepted me. In Alexander's poem, Question Time, she asked, what use is poetry? Her response, we have poetry so we do not die of history. I love that. For Alexander, the task of poetry was to make beauty of life's challenges and render it somehow survivable. I think a thing we need so much more of, especially today. So we are super happy to shout out Meena Alexander. If you didn't happen to see her doodle, then hopefully you heard this and are inspired to go check out her stuff.
Yes, and head over to the Poetry Foundation and search Meena Alexander if you want to read some of Meena Alexander's works, as well as hear some of them read out loud.
And that is the show.
Ooh.
As always, our big ask is that you just go out there, find one person in your life who you think would love this show, and share it with them.
Hey, next week I would love to have a special guest. And you know who that special guest should be? You! That's right.
What?
You can send us a question that you want to ask us about something culturally specific or advice, maybe some insight, and we will look into it or answer it. We will answer it poorly, but we'll answer it on the show. You can write in or send us a quick audio file of the question. Tell us your name and where you're from, and send it over to abcdpodcastshow@gmail.com. That's abcdpodcastshow@gmail.com.
Yes. Let us know something you're confused about. We'd love to chat about it. All right, and now it's time to shout out our Patreons and listeners at the $10 or above level. Here we go. Here's our ballad of love to our Patreons at that shout-out level. What's the genre we're doing it in, Delvin?
The genre or style that you're doing it in is in the performance of Samuel L. Jackson from the upcoming film Planes in a Snake.
Oh.
Oh, God. Okay. You start, Omar.
Okay, here we go. I'm thinking Sam Jackson I'm going to do a couple different Sam Jacksons. I'm going to start, just to give you an idea, I think I'm going to oscillate between some Nick Furies. I think I'm going to maybe some Die Hards. But right now, I'm going to go with I'm going to start off with Samuel Jackson from Unbreakable.
Oh, okay.
Joshua Ryan, Tal B.M. Carlo, Benjamin Lowe, Miranda Hollinger,
Michael Long, Raylyn Fox, Selena B, Nervous Rex. Watch out for those planes on those snakes.
I still believe in Sarah H. Varun, I'm cheering you on. Moldy Vort, where were you back there? Philip Dizon, I'm proud to call you a friend.
Kathleen Schagel, Ducati, Reverend Catino, Brandon Pace. Motherfucking Brandon Pace.
Monroe Maxwell, I'm also proud to call you a friend. Jeremy Schwartz, what were you doing over there? 8-Bit D. 8-Bit D. Chris Sims, get over here.
What is that sign that Dan Wally is wearing in the middle of Harlem? He's going to wear that in the middle of Harlem? Jeremy O'Brien, Astra, Brendan Bradley, get out there. Get him.
Let me see. Hold on. Samuel L. Jackson monologue. For our gods, we got to do something a little special here. Hold on. Let me just see if I can. Sure. Okay, hold on. Here we go. Google, thank you so much. Sometimes. And, oh, you're knocking over.
Did something just.
I'm watching over Serena's dog right now. And I will, Mark Tucker, great vengeance upon them with furious Hannah Lehmans. And they shall know, James Gaffney, that I am the Scribbles and Flapjacks when I shall lay my Vaden upon them. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Amazing. Well, look, if you're live, stick around for some bonus content, which will only be available via the VOD on the EffinFunny Patreon. Otherwise, that's the show. The show is produced and edited by Anand Shah and Kayla Mahoney. The show's technical director and sound designer is Delvin Neville. The show's executive producers are me and Anand Shah. Music by Harshal Sisodia, Jasper Singh, and Moloch Zaveri. This has been an EffinFunny production. And on behalf of our co-host, Omar, I've been our host, Sandeep. May your chuckles be aligned and smothered in chutney.